All right, ladies and gentlemen, at this time we are going, oh, first of all, good morning. Haven't seen you all in a while. Glad to have you back. I'm sure you're glad to be back. We are going to be taking a witness out of order. That means that, as you know, we are in the midst of the cross-examination of Detective Tom Lang, and we are going to interrupt the cross-examination of Detective Lang to present another witness to you this morning. Because this person resides, I believe, still resides outside of the state of California. Is that correct? All right, and we'll be returning. All right, you may proceed, Ms. Clark. Thank you.
Good morning. People call Mr. Mark Storfer.
Sir, can you please raise your right hand? You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause now given before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Please have a seat in the witness stand and state and spell your first and last names for the record.
Mark Storfer, M-A-R-K, S-T-O-R, F as in Frank, E-R.
All right, good morning, Mr. Storfer. You can just slide the microphone just slightly to your right. There you go. Perfect. Thank you. All right, Ms. Clark.
Mr. Storfer, directing your attention back to the date of June the 12th, 1994. On that date, sir, where were you living?
At 12100 Dorothy Street.
And where is that, if you can tell us, sir, in relationship to 875 South Bundy?
This house is on the southwest corner of Dorothy and Bundy.
Okay, we have here a chart that is marked as Keyboard 26. If you would step down, sir. First, look at it for a minute so you can orient yourself. And if you can tell us whether there is a box there that indicates where you were living.
No, there's not.
Okay. There is a box, however, marked in purple as Mark Storfer. If that's not correct, can you tell us where your house would have been located?
Sure.
All right. Down in this lower corner?
That's correct.
And for the record, Your Honor, we will have this corrected to indicate. So were you at the corner of Dorothy and Bundy down at the southwest corner?
That's correct.
Now, from that location, sir, did you have any windows that faced north on Bundy? Of course, sorry.
Yes, I did.
On the night of June the 12th, sir, at approximately 10 p.m., where were you?
In bed with my wife.
And did you have a son at that time?
Yes, I do.
And still?
Yes.
Can you tell us, did you have something that you did with your son that evening?
Yes, he had fallen asleep in our bed around that time.
At around 10 o'clock?
That's correct.
Did you take him out of your bed and put him into his bed at some point?
Yes, I did. After he fell asleep, should I proceed?
Go ahead.
I brought him downstairs to his room, which was on the lower level. Our bedroom was on the upper level. And as I was taking him downstairs, I heard a dog barking.
Now, why did that attract your attention?
I was concerned that it would wake up my son. It was that loud and persistent.
Had you heard barking that loud and persistent before in the neighborhood?
No, I have not.
Now, did you see what time it was before you left the bedroom holding your son?
No, I did not.
Was there any point at which you noticed what time it was?
Yes. After I put him in his bed, closed a few lights downstairs, and then went upstairs, I'd remarked to my wife that these dogs were
Sustain.
You put your son back in his bed, and then you went upstairs,
That's correct.
and you remarked something to your wife about the dogs.
That's correct.
At that point, did you look to see what time it was?
Yes, I did.
And what time was it?
It was 10:28 on the digital display on our TV.
Now, is that the accurate time, sir?
We typically set our clocks about 5 minutes fast, so I would presume it would have been 5 minutes earlier.
Okay, 10:23.
Correct.
And at that point, it was already, what? Give us an estimate how long after you heard the dog barking.
Probably a good 3 minutes.
So what time was it that you estimate you first heard the dog barking?
About 10:20 p.m.
Now, when you got into bed with your wife, it was about, I'm sorry, you got back into the room at 10:23?
10:28 is when I looked at the TV, which was a couple of minutes after I'd gotten into the room.
Right, okay. And so that, given that you set your clocks faster, as you had indicated, 5 minutes, it was about 10:23?
That's correct.
What did you do at that point?
I looked out the window of our bedroom that faces north towards Bundy to see if I could see where that dog was or what was going on. It was pretty dark, and I couldn't see anything unusual, and I couldn't locate the dog. I also looked out the west-facing window of our bedroom to see if the dog was further over to the west. We face the alley on the west side, and I could not see anything at that time either.
Okay. So when you say you looked west, were you looking down Dorothy?
That's correct.
Okay. And when you look north up Bundy.
Up Bundy and the front of Dorothy as well.
Were you able to see anyone walking down the street at that time?
No, I did not.
And for how long did you look out the window?
Just very briefly initially, and then we went to bed, and I had slept very lightly because the dog had continued to bark. I'd doze off, wake up, doze off, wake up, and I kept looking out the window periodically.
Throughout the night?
About 12:15, when I looked out the window.
Sustained.
At some point, well, let me ask you this. Up until about 12:15, when you looked out your window, did you look north on Bundy at each occasion?
Yes,
And from the first time you looked north on Bundy at about 10:23, till the last time you looked north on Bundy at 12:15, did you see anyone walking down the street, southbound or northbound on Bundy?
no, I did not.
At 12:15, when you looked out your window, what did you see?
I saw a number of police cars with their lights on, and yellow police tape blocking off both Dorothy and Bundy on two corners.
During the time that you kept looking out the window up until 12:15, were you still able to hear the dog barking?
Yes, I was.
Was there something unusual about the manner in which it was barking that drew your attention?
Was very persistent. The dog continued to bark and stopped just long enough to take a breath and bark some more. He whined or yelped periodically.
Now, had you ever heard barking like that coming from that area?
No, I had not.
And when I say that area, what area did it seem to be coming from?
From the front of the house, which is north facing.
Would that be from the location, general vicinity of 875 South Bundy?
Sustained.
North of your location would be up Bundy, correct?
That's correct.
And is 875 South Bundy north of your location?
That's correct.
And did the barking appear to come from that area?
Sustained.
And where did the barking seem to be coming from in relationship to 875 South Bundy?
From that direction.
And at 12:15, when you looked outside, you saw the police. Were you able to see any dogs?
Yes, I did. I saw a white, medium-sized, long hair type of dog tied to a street sign on the northeast corner
Of
Bundy and Dorothy.
So if you could step down and look at the animal shown in People's 26, can you tell us? There's a photograph at the bottom there. Can you tell us if you recognize that dog
It looks very similar to the one that I saw tied up.
at the northeast corner of South Dorothy and Bundy?
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Morning, Mr. Stork.
Good morning.
As I understand your testimony, you're telling us that there were a number of police cars out there by 12:15 in the early morning hours of June 13th, 1994?
More than one, yes.
And by a number, what number? Give us the total number.
I remember seeing one on Bundy, just beyond the yellow tape. I saw one on Dorothy, parked just opposite our house. And I believe I saw one in the alley facing our house.
So you saw at least 3 police cars there by 12:15. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying, yes.
And as I understand your testimony, the first time you looked at a clock in reference to this dog barking, the clock on your TV said 10:28 p.m. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, it is.
And with regard to this particular clock, when did you last set that clock, if ever?
Probably not in a long while.
So how long did you have that TV?
6, 8 years.
And would you say you had not set it during that period of time?
Oh, no, I had said it in that period of time.
You just have no idea when it was before June 12th, 1994 that you last said it?
Well, I'd said it one time when we moved to that location in April because the power came out, so I had to reset it in April.
April of what year?
Same year, 1994.
94.
That's
Had you
correct.
set it after that?
Not to my recollection.
Do you know if your wife had set it at all after that?
Not to my knowledge.
All right. You've discussed that with her at all?
No, I have not.
All right. You've not talked to her about that. But you can tell us the last time you said it was in April of 1994. Is that correct?
That's the last time I remember setting it,
All right,
correct?
that you can tell us about.
Yes,
And at that time, when you saw it this evening, it said 10:28 p.m. or thereabouts, right?
that's correct.
All right. Now, from your location, and so that it's clear from the record, this diagram that was placed on the board here, which we refer to as People's number 26 for identification. The house is labeled Mark Storfer is in the wrong location on this diagram. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you're more over on this corner. You're on the southwest corner,
That's correct.
Dorothy and Bundy. And from your window, you have a window that faces, and you can look down the alley. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And at some point that evening, you look down this alley, the alley that runs parallel to Bundy. It intersects here with Dorothy. Is that correct?
That's correct. I can only see to the north on the alley.
You can see north, looking up the alley north.
Right.
Is that right? And about what time was it that you first looked up that alley, sir?
Approximately 10:28.
All right, and this is about the time that you first became aware of the time that appeared on your television. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And when you look up that alley, did you see any vehicles or any cars?
No, I did not.
You see any persons at all? Any people walking?
No, I did not.
What did you see, if anything?
I didn't see anything.
You just looked up the alley and saw basically nothing.
Empty alley,
Okay.
asphalt.
All right. Didn't see any cars, didn't see any people. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And this was about 10:28, according to your clock, 10:28
According to the
p.m.?
clock, that's
All right.
correct.
Now, from another window of your residence, were you able to see north on Bundy at all?
There are other windows I could see north on Bundy, but I did not look out those
You
windows.
didn't look out those windows, right?
That's correct.
And so, as I understand your testimony that evening, you never saw any people walking down Bundy in a southerly direction toward Dorothy from north to south. You never saw that.
Not between 10:28 and 12:15, correct.
All right. During the times that you look now, between 10:28 and 12:15, how many times did you look out the window?
I think maybe a couple of times.
And that means 2.
Yes,
All right. And during one of those times, you looked up the alley. Is that right?
That's
Answer
correct.
out loud so she can take it down. So one of the times you looked up the alley, north of the alley, right?
that's correct.
You saw nothing. During one of those times, the other time, did you look up the alley or did you look up Bundy or both?
I don't think I looked up the alley. It was probably on Dorothy and maybe the beginning part of Bundy.
Okay. And so did you ever see a lady and a man walking down Bundy on the west side of Bundy anytime around 10:28 or thereafter?
No, I did not.
Did you ever hear any sounds coming from north of Bundy? Did you ever hear any screams or anything of that nature?
Just a dog bark.
No. Did you ever hear any screams?
No, I did not.
Did you ever hear anybody yell, hey, 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 at all that night?
No, I did not.
So you never heard any sounds at all that night between 10:28 and 12:15?
Not besides the dog barking.
Okay, yeah. I'm talking about human beings now. not
No
dogs,
human
okay?
being sounds.
All right, okay. And you never saw any human beings, right?
That's correct.
But you heard this dog bark. Is that
Yes.
right? And it's your testimony that at 12:15, when you looked outside, the dog was tied to a post or something outside?
That's correct.
And you sure about that, right?
Yep.
Okay. Where was, step down for us and show us where this dog was tied up at 12:15 a.m. on June 13th.
Right here on the northeast corner.
Can we get that mark somewhere? Like the mark where he has that, some fashion.
Speaks for itself. You're on the northeast corner of Bundy and Dorf.
I'd like to have a mark with there. Yes.
Well, it's the prosecution's exhibit at this point. Do you have something similar that you can use?
No, Your Honor, but it's going to be an exhibit for the court, for the jury. Ultimately. I just want to be able to observe it later on as to where it says that. If all possible.
Well, he's just pointed to it in front of the jury, so I assume that they can recall that.
All right, very well. Okay. So the northeast corner of Dorothy and Bundy on People's 26 for identification is where you saw this dog tied. Is that right?
That's correct.
You could see that from your window.
Yes, I could.
And did you look out the window and see the dog at 12:15 and see him tied there?
That's correct.
And at that time, was the dog barking at that point?
Yes, he was.
Did you
Or
ever?
it.
I'm
It
sorry.
was.
All right, it was. Okay. Did you ever hear any more than one dog barking that night?
No, I did not.
And was that the first time that you saw a dog that night at about 12:15?
Yes, it was.
And that was right about the same time that you had seen these three police cars that you described for us. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Did you at that point, around 12:15, talk to any police officers at that point?
Not at that time. No.
You did at some later time talk to some police officers?
That's correct.
All right. And did you see them? Did they write a report out at all when they talked to you at that evening? I'm asking you. Oh, well, did the police write a report out?
The officer had a little blue menu card, and I saw him jot a few things down on there.
Did he? Your Honor, may we approach? Sure. Regard to that.
All right, thank you, counsel.
Did you ever find out the name of the officer who talked to you?
No, I do not know his name.
At what time did this officer speak with you, sir?
About 2:20 a.m.
2:20.
approximately.
Was the officer in plain clothes or in a uniform?
Uniform.
And did you ever ascertain the name of that police officer?
No, I did not.
Was it can you describe the officer for us?
Hardly.
Male, female?
Male.
Okay.
Male, medium height, a little bit greater than medium build.
All right. Caucasian.
Caucasian, I believe.
All right. And how long did you talk to him at that time?
Maybe 2 or 3 minutes.
And you saw him write something down on a card or on some kind of a pad or something, he said?
Saw him jot down some note, yes.
And at that time, you spoke to him about what you had heard that particular night. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, prior to seeing this police officer, had you dozed off that in the early morning hours that day?
Yes.
And then you'd wake back up, and then you'd awaken, and you'd hear the dog barking. Or is that correct?
That's correct. Until I heard the doorbell ring.
And then you were awakened, and you came downstairs. Is that
Yes.
correct? Was your son able to sleep through this all?
Yes, he was.
Now, with regard to this matter, you gave a statement to the district attorney's office on January 1st, 1995. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
In this building,
No, in my home.
at your home? And at that time, you indicated that you had brought your son down to bed somewhere between 10:20 and 10:30 that night. Is that correct?
Correct.
And at that time, you indicated that you looked out the window and you couldn't see where this barking was coming from. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so would I be correct in assuming that you never saw a dog until you said you saw this dog tied up near Dorothy and Bundy there on the corner at about 12:15? Is that correct?
That's correct.
You never told the investigator about seeing a clock on your television that said 10:28 p.m., did you? Or a.m. or p.m., right?
I don't
Never
remember.
mentioned to him, did you?
I don't remember.
Would it be helpful to you to review your statement?
Sure.
All right. May I approach you?
Yes.
Before you, Councilman, statement taken of Mark Storfer on January 1st, 1995. Investigator by the name of Michael Stevens. It's fairly short. It's about 4 pages. Why don't you read that to yourself quickly if you can?
It mentions here about looking at a clock,
All right,
so
did
that
you
would
tell-
be the clock.
The question is, did you tell him at that time that you looked at the clock and it said 10:28 p.m.? Did it say that?
Does not say that. No.
All right. Did it say anything at all on there about the clock may have been 5 minutes fast?
No.
Anything about that? All right. So you didn't tell him that at that time, did you?
Not at that time, no.
This interview was also tape recorded, was it not?
That's correct.
All right. Now, you woke up about 1:30 that evening, that 1:30 a.m. that morning, isn't that correct?
About 2:20, 2:15, 2:20 when the doorbell rang.
All right, you hadn't awakened at 1:30?
Not to my recollection, no.
All right, let me see if this refreshes your recollection at all. Page 2 of the statement. Bottom line 27, 28. Just read this part yourself. It's a nice part. You read that to yourself?
Yes, I have.
Does that refresh your recollection at all with regard to what you said to Investigator Stevens?
No, but I must have said it.
All right, did you tell him that I think I woke up at 1:30 and of course it was still barking? You say that to him?
That's what the transcript says.
Right. Do you
I
recall saying-
don't recall.
Okay, which, would you remember have been better on January 1st than it is now? Would you think?
I don't know.
All right. You said that on a tape, which you were trying to tell the truth, were you not?
Sure.
So you're trying to be as accurate as you could?
Yep.
At some point, did you notice any yellow tape lines around the perimeter there at the area of Dorothy and Bundy, sir?
Yes.
And when did you notice that?
Approximately 12:15.
All right, and at 12:15, you noticed that?
Yes.
And you know that at 12:15, when you noticed that, that's when you saw those 3 police cars, right?
That's correct.
And this yellow tape was kind of a perimeter around the area there at Bundy, is that correct?
It was on 2 corners.
Okay, tell us, describe for the jury at 12:15 where this yellow tape was.
Sure. It crossed the north side of Bundy from east to west.
Okay.
And the west side of Dorothy from north to south.
All right. And it just looked as though that yellow tape would keep people from coming in
Yes.
the area. Seemed like a perimeter to you.
Yes.
All right. And it was at 12:15 that you saw this, right?
That's correct.
And this was at the same time that you saw the dog tied up on the corner also, right?
Yes.
And up to the time that you talked to the police after 2:00 in the morning, would I be correct in assuming that you still had not seen any vehicles out there, any other vehicles, either in the alley or up on Bundy,
Besides the police cars, that's correct.
right? And you had not seen any other individuals, either in the alley or up on Bundy.
That's correct.
And you're sure about the times you told us about today, right?
Yes.
Thank you very kindly, Mr. Stork.
Ms. Clark?
Thank you. Showing you the statement that Mr. Kaufman showed you, lines 19 and 20 on page 2. Did you indicate there that you looked at the clock and that's how you remember it was between 10:20 and 10:30?
That's correct.
And You gave that estimate. When you gave that estimate, were you aware of your habit that you've earlier testified to of setting your clocks 5 minutes ahead?
Yes, I was.
So at this time, is it your recollection that you heard the dog begin to bark at 10:20?
That's correct.
Well, the answer will stand.
The first time,
Same testimony they had on direct. Proceed.
the first time you looked out your window, sir, did you look at the alley? When I say the alley, what alley are you talking about?
The alley to the west of my house and to the west of Bundy, running parallel with Bundy.
Okay, would that be the alley that runs behind the area of 875 South Bundy?
That's correct.
Okay, and you looked out your window, the first time you looked out your window, was that when you first got back to your bedroom from having put your son to bed?
Yes.
Okay, and what time was it you thought that was?
My clock said 10:28, so it would have been about 10:23.
10:23. And where did you look first?
I looked on Dorothy right in front of the house first.
P38.
All right. You looking at the monitor, sir?
Yes, I am.
Do you recognize that area?
Yes, that's the alley.
Okay. Have I ever shown you any pictures before?
No, you have not.
Okay. So this is the first time you've ever seen this?
Yes, it is.
Okay, when you say it's the alley, do you mean the alley that you just described running behind 875 South Bundy?
That's correct.
And how far up the alley were you able to see from your house?
Maybe 50 feet.
Were you able to see as far as the man standing? Can you see the man standing there to the right of the police car?
Yes, I can.
Were you able to see that far up the alley?
I don't believe so.
How far up the alley could you see if you can locate a point in this photograph?
Probably behind those cars parked on the right side, perpendicular to the alley.
Okay. There's a car that you see. Excuse me, may I complete my questioning of the witness?
Yes, please.
You see a car that's parked facing in towards the building where there's lights in the balcony?
Yes, I do.
Is that the one you're referring to as far up as you can see?
Not quite that far.
Just before that?
That's correct.
Did you tell us where to work for this? All right, I'm going to ask you to guide the arrow.
Okay.
Tell the arrow where to go.
Down to the right, stop a little bit up, and a bit left, behind the cars, somewhere about there.
Could you please there we go. Thank you.
I could see across the alley from that point.
Could this be marked as 38A, Your Honor?
38D.
D? D.
38D. As David, we're going to print
D as in
this.
David.
Print this, all right.
Okay, so the first time you looked out your window, the first place you looked was,
On Dorothy in front of the house.
and that was at 10:23, you said?
That's correct.
And did you also at that time look down the alley?
Yes, I did.
Peoples, exhibit number 50.
Oh, it's dark on the screen, isn't it? Can you lighten that? Is there anyone? Hmm.
Do you recognize what faces on that photograph, sir?
It appears to be Bundy Street.
And can you tell which direction you're looking on Bundy in that photograph?
I believe facing north.
Does this photograph give you as good a view north on Bundy as you had from your apartment or from your residence window on the night of June the 12th?
No, it does not.
Are you able to see farther up north on Bundy from your window?
That's correct.
But that is the location in which you were looking.
That's correct.
And when you looked out your window for the first time at 10:23, you looked first north on Bundy. That was the first place you looked?
I actually looked on Dorothy first, and then north on Bundy, then the alley.
So when you looked on Dorothy, in which direction on Dorothy did you look?
Both directions, east and west in front of the house.
Did you see anyone on the street on either east or west of Dorothy?
No, I did not.
And then you looked where?
North on Bundy.
Did you see anyone walking either up or down the street at that time?
No, I
north
did
on
not.
Bundy? And did you see anyone in the alley?
No, I did not.
Do you recall? And then did you say you looked out the window again at some later point?
Yes, I did.
When was that?
Maybe around 11.
And when you looked out the window at 11, where did you look?
On Dorothy and on Bundy.
Did you look east and west on Dorothy?
Yes, I did.
Did you see anyone?
No, I did not.
When you looked on Bundy, did you look north again?
Yes, I did.
Did you see anyone?
No, I did not.
And you also did not see a dog.
No, I did not.
Could you still hear the barking?
Yes, I could.
Did you look up the alley at that time?
I don't recollect looking up the alley at that time.
And then did you get back in bed?
Yes, I did.
Did you get up again?
Yes,
And what time was it that you got up again?
maybe around 11:30ish.
Did you look out the window again?
Yes, I did.
Where did you look that point?
On Dorothy,
East and west?
east and west.
Did you see anyone?
No, I did not.
Did you look up north on Bundy again?
I don't recollect. Probably not.
Were you still able to hear barking?
Yes, I was.
And then what did you do?
Went back to bed.
Did you get up again?
Yes, I did.
What time?
About 12:15.
And is that when you saw police cars?
Yes, it is.
And is that when you saw the dog?
That's correct.
When you looked, so on each occasion when you looked out your window, is it your testimony that you saw no one walking north or south on Bundy or on Dorothy or in the alley behind 875 South Bundy?
That's correct.
And the, Your Honor, if I may, I'd like to correct the exhibit marked as People's 26 based on this witness's testimony.
Certainly when we have Mr. Storfer place the markers.
If we could let him point it out to Mr. Fairtlow because these are sticky. So the record, the witness is pointing again to the southwest corner. And Mr. Fairtlow has placed the icon in that location. Mr. Storfer, is your residence on the night of June the 12th not correctly indicated on the diagram marked People's 26?
Yes, it is.
And it does, and the window you described does face north, as is indicated on that diagram.
That's correct.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Mr. Cochran, any recross?
Yes, a few questions, Your Honor. You had described and looking up, may we have 38D back up here? Thank you, Rick County. And Mr. Starfer, you've shared with us and helped us by placing an arrow about how far you could see up that alleyway. And my question is, on how many occasions, if any, after the first time you looked up the alley that night at about after 10, your clock said 10:28 or thereabouts, did you look again? Clock said 10:28 in the statement testimony.
Witness testified the time was 10:20,
Yeah.
10:23.
Clock said.
Clock said 10:28.
Overruled.
Thank you. Well, with regard to that, how many times after your clock said 10:28 did you look up that alley as depicted there on People's 38D?
None until about, no, none beyond that time.
All right. So you understand the question I'm asking? How many times did you look up the alley after you looked this first time that evening? If you-
None.
Okay, so you only looked one time.
That's correct.
All right. How many times altogether that evening did you look up Bundy, north on Bundy?
3 or 4, including the early morning.
All right. And how many times did you look east and west on Dorothy?
Probably about 4 times.
And you described for us that, again, that you saw the dog was tied at the post at about 12:15. Call that?
That's correct.
And you look at your clock again at that point?
Yes,
So actually, that would be about 12:10 then, wouldn't it? If your clock was 5 minutes fast.
approximately, yes.
So then these police cars that you saw, these 3 police cars that you saw out there, they would also be about 12:10. Is that right?
Approximately.
Now, with regard to this clock, you had last set that clock in April of 1994. Is that correct?
Overruled.
You last set that clock in April of 1994. Is that correct?
It's the last time I remember setting it.
Right. And you don't know whether your wife had reset it or you'd had any kind of power outages in that area between April and June 12th, 1994 to check the accuracy of that clock, do you?
No, I do not.
So you're giving us just your best estimate. Is that correct, sir?
That's correct.
And with regard to this yellow tape that you saw up again at about 12:15, if your clock was fast, it would be 12:10. If it was slow, it'll be even later. Is that right?
Objection, that's also speculation.
Overruled.
That would be correct.
Thank you very much, Mr. Storfer. Thank you.
Mr. Storfer, when you saw this dog tied up across the street to the street sign, did it continue to bark?
Yes, it did.
Anything else?
Mr. Storfer, the first time you indicated the first time you looked at the clock. When, if ever, did you look at the clock again?
I must have looked each time that I got up to look out the window.
Do you have a specific memory of doing that?
No, I don't.
Do you have a specific memory of looking at the clock the first time that you heard when you first came upstairs to your bedroom?
Very much so, yes.
The times after that, when you got up to look out the window, do you have any specific memory of looking at your clock?
Not specifically, no.
So with respect to the times that you're giving us after the first time you looked out the window, when you first got back to your bedroom, are those times approximate?
Yes, they are.
Overruled.
I have nothing further.
But again, Mr. Storfer, you're trying to be as accurate as you can in giving us these times. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you believe that you did look at the clock at other times that evening when you got up. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
That's right. Thank you, sir.
All right, Mr. Storfer, thank you very much for coming in. You're now excused.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Clark, are we ready to resume with Detective Lang? All right. All right, good morning again, Detective.
Morning, Your Honor.
All right, record should reflect that Detective Tom Lang has resumed the witness stand. The detective has been reminded he is still under oath. And Mr. Cochran, you may resume your cross-examination.
Thank you, Rick. Good morning, Detective Lang.
Morning.
You haven't retired yet, have you?
Not yet.
Still there? Okay, great. Good to have you back. You've had occasion, have you not, Detective Lang, to discuss your testimony with the district attorneys. Isn't that correct, Mr. Darden and Ms. Clark?
Yes.
And during the breaks, you have occasion to talk about your testimony. Isn't that correct?
On occasion, yes.
And sometime during the lunch hour, you've had occasion to go up and discuss your testimony. Is that correct?
Not recently, but I have.
Well, when you last testified,
Yes.
you haven't been here recently, I trust that. Have you?
No.
Now, in that connection, did Mr. Darden tell you that you ought to be more aggressive in your answers to my questions because I was making points on cross-examination? He tell you that?
For me to be more aggressive?
Yes, in your answers to my questions and to volunteer things because I was making points on cross-examination.
No, I don't believe he told me to be more aggressive.
You don't believe he told you that?
No.
Did you have occasion? I'd like to show you an article. Your Honor, I'd like to approach first, show the court something. If I might.
Yes, with report, please. Mr. Cochran.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Lang, did you have occasion to read any newspaper articles wherein Mr. Darden was quoted? Okay.
Newspaper articles bearing on his testimony here in court.
You stated, Your Honor. Do you have occasion to read any newspaper articles bearing upon your testimony and whether or not you should be more aggressive in your answers?
No.
Did you have any conversation at all with Mr. Darden about the way you were answering questions last week? That is the week of February the 20th.
We discussed various parts of the testimony.
And what did he tell you about the way you were answering the questions?
I don't recall anything specific one way or the other as far as how I was answering the questions.
Well, give us your best recollection about what he said. Did he criticize you during the discussions with him?
No, I don't believe I was criticized.
You didn't take it as criticism?
No.
I'm asking, did he take it as criticism?
Overruled.
What did he say to you?
Again, I have no specifics as far as exactly what was said, but I certainly didn't take it as criticism.
All right. And with regard to Ms. Clark, what did she say to you about your testimony, if anything?
Again, I don't recall any specifics. I don't recall any criticism, however.
When was the last time that you spoke with these two lawyers, either of these two lawyers, about your testimony here today?
At least a week ago, perhaps longer.
That would have been after you concluded your testimony the last time you were here?
I believe that was on a Thursday. I don't recall if it was after or prior.
All right. You don't recall if you talked to him either after or before that?
Well, I'm trying to think back. I believe I testified a week ago Thursday the last time. And I don't recall if there's any discussion on my testimony that Friday or it was before. I just don't recall.
All right. And what was said at that time that you recall?
I don't recall exactly what was said. We were discussing my testimony and what I'd be testifying to.
All right. Do you recall a conversation that you and I had wherein you indicated that you very often don't listen to lawyers anyway?
No, I don't.
You don't remember that conversation?
No,
You don't remember? Does that sound like something you might say?
that I don't listen to lawyers
Listen to
often.
lawyers that don't listen to what lawyers say very often anyway.
I think I'd be very careful where I said that.
You don't recall ever saying that?
No, I don't.
Yeah, maybe approach again just for a moment.
Sure.
Counsel.
All right. Thank you, counsel. Proceed.
Thank you, Mayor. Detective Lang, do you recall that when you were testifying before, I asked you whether or not you were aware of a controversy between the Los Angeles Police Department and the LA County Coroner's Office regarding LAPD's failure to promptly report the death of individuals at crime scenes? Remember those questions?
A controversy?
Yes.
I don't recall a controversy.
All right. Now I'm asking you, do you remember me asking you those series of questions?
I recall something like that, yes.
All right. And you indicated to us that you didn't recall any particular controversy. Is that correct?
Yes.
Have you ever at any time spoken with a Mr. Juan J. Jimenez, Assistant Chief of the Los Angeles County Coroner's Operations Bureau?
I know who Mr. Jimenez is. I've never had any conversations with him.
You've never talked to him at all?
In passing, not about any specific case.
All right. Have you talked to him, and are you aware of whether or not Mr. Jimenez had any kind of oversight responsibility on the Simpson case?
No, I'm not.
Have you ever talked to him about the question of time of death as it relates to the Simpson case?
I don't recall talking to Mr. Jimenez. I recall talking to Dr. Lashmanan and Dr. Golden regarding that.
And was Jimenez present at that time, if you recall?
No.
All right. So that you talked to him, but perhaps not about this case?
I may have. I've spoken with dozens and dozens of people regarding this case and many at the coroner's office. I just don't have an independent recollection of speaking with Mr. Jimenez about the case.
All right. At any time when you've talked to Mr. Jimenez in the past, he has ever voiced any complaint from the coroner's department about the LAPD's failure to report or to call the coroner's office promptly to report deaths of individuals?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
I don't recall any complaints from Mr. Jimenez.
You do not
No.
recall any complaints from Dr. Lakshmana, the coroner of Los Angeles County?
No, I wouldn't call it complaints.
Well, what would you call it? What would he say?
Objection, hearsay.
Hearsay. Sustained.
Well, how would you characterize what Dr. Lakshmanan said to you?
Also hearsay, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Has Dr. Lakshmanan ever complained to you about the LAPD's failure to notify them promptly?
No.
And can you tell us when was the last time you spoke with Mr. Juan J. Jimenez, approximately?
It hasn't been recent, and I couldn't tell you a date.
Okay. Now, Detective Lang, when last we were here, we talked about the notebooks that you had, and you were kind enough to go and look through these notebooks that you had. Do you call that?
Yes.
And on one of the videos, you're seen writing on a kind of a clipboard. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And what were you doing when you were writing on that clipboard at the Bundy scene there?
I was writing crime scene notes.
And did those notes become originals in those books that you had when you were here last week?
Yes.
In other words, you wrote something down and you put those directly in the into the homicide book?
That's correct.
Do you have an original copy of the notes that you were writing on the morning?
An original copy.
Strike that. Do you have an original of the notes? Thank you, Your Honor. Original of the notes that you were writing on the morning of June 13th, 1994, the ones we see you writing in the video.
Yes, I do.
And can we see those?
Certainly.
May I put you?
All right, the records reflect that Detective Tom Lang is still on the witness stand. Good morning again, Detective. You're reminded you're still
Morning.
under oath. Mr. Cochran, you may continue with your cross-examination.
Thank you. Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Detective Lang. Just when we took the break, we were looking, we had an occasion during the break to look at your notes and with regard to the Bundy crime scene. Is that correct?
Yes.
And with regard to the notes, what's contained in the book before you are your original notes that were written at or about the time of your observations at the scene. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you shared those with me, and by and large, I have copies of those. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, for instance, I have a question for you. With regard to the question of the liver temperature on Nicole Brown Simpson, from a chronological standpoint, I believe you told us that her liver temperature was taken after Mr. Goldman's temperature. Is that correct?
That's my recollection.
Because his was taken at the scene, is your recollection, and then hers was taken later in the coroner's van. Is that correct?
Yes.
So now chronologically, if you're looking at your notes at the bottom of 0548, you have her liver temperature. Would that have been put in there after you discover that information? Look at the bottom of 0548.
That would have been put in there at the time that I received the information, yes.
All right. So that the fact it may come before Goldman, you kept it in order under Nicole Brown Simpson. Is that correct?
The fact that it came before Goldman, I believe it was subsequent to Goldman.
Well, the fact that in your notes it appears at a time before we talk about Mr. Goldman is of no particular consequence. Is that correct?
Other than that's the time that the temperature was taken.
And is it your recollection that with regard to the liver temperatures of both individuals, that they both had the same liver temperature?
Yes.
And it's your recollection again that you saw the liver temperature of Goldman being taken there at the scene, right?
I believe I did, yes.
And from remembering that video, both bodies were basically moved to about the same place before they were placed on the coroner's gurney. Is that correct?
Sustained, rephrase the question.
All right. You remember seeing the video, do you not, with regard to the removal of the body of Miss Nicole Brown Simpson?
Yes.
And thereafter, Mr. Goldman's body was brought over to that same general area on the walkway before it was placed on the gurney. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
And were both bodies removed by this coroner's investigator by the name of Jacopo?
With the assistance of Ratcliffe, yes.
All right. What is, if you know, what is the difference in their two particular functions with the coroner's office? The lady, Miss Ratcliffe, and the gentleman who's wearing the blue jumpsuit.
Miss Ratcliffe is a coroner's investigator, and the other gentleman is a coroner's driver and assistant.
And have you worked with those two individuals before on other cases?
I don't recall if I have or not.
All right. Now, last week I had asked you some questions about the envelope that contains the one lens therein. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Now, the first time that you had occasion to look inside that,
That is the testimony, all speculation.
Overruled.
when was?
You didn't find that was supposed to provide.
You just said yes.
Council assumed.
Let me see counsel at sidebar without the report. Mr. Cochran, you're going to withdraw the last question?
Yeah, I
and
will,
answer?
Your Honor, just for clarity and to move this matter on.
All right, thank you. Jury, disregard the last question and answer.
With regard to the envelope that was found at the scene that contained the eyeglasses, you recall some questions about that last week?
Yes.
Can you tell us what date it was that you had occasion, if any, to look inside that envelope?
I peered inside an opening in the envelope on the morning of the 13th.
All right, and where were you when you peered inside an opening in the envelope at that time?
Well, basically standing over it.
And that was in the early morning hours? during the course of your Bundy crime scene investigation?
Yes.
And when you said there was an opening, did you make an opening to it, or was there already an opening in the envelope at that point?
No, there was a small opening that I could peer into.
Was the envelope, how was it laying? Was there some writing on that envelope?
There was writing on the underside, the bottom side.
All right, so that the part with the writing was against the ground, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, and your observations were made as you stood above the envelope, and did you peer inside of it?
Yes.
And when you looked inside, what did you see, Detective Lang, if anything?
What appeared to be a pair of eyeglasses.
And did you notice at that time how many lenses did these eyeglasses have?
No, I wouldn't have been able to see that.
So at this point, you can't tell us whether it was one lens or two lenses, is that correct?
That's correct.
Did you ever, in the course of your investigation, go back and ascertain when the glasses were found over at Mezzaluna, how many lenses were there?
I don't believe so.
So did you ever talk to the owner of the glasses with regard to the fact of, at some point, I presume they had two lenses in those glasses, is that correct?
Excuse me, counsel. Won't you approach without the reporter, please? All right, thank you, counsel. Mr. Conrad.
Thank you. And I understand that the envelope containing the glasses are not here today, so in that connection, I'm probably going to have to mark as a photograph of what's to be the envelope. I have to show it to Detective Lang that.
All right. Defense next in order is 1047.
1047.
All right, go through the report, please. All right, Mr. Cochran, you're going to withdraw 1047.
Yeah, sure. I have another photograph. I think it's People's 104, I guess, for identification. The almost. Detective Lang, with regard to
I think Mr. Fairlow needs the barcode back. Can we bring that up?
Detective Lang, have you seen that, what's depicted there of the four, sir?
Yes,
And was the envelope in that approximate condition when you saw it at the scene before you peered inside of it?
I believe so.
If you can tell us, and you may have to step down, what I wanted to find out was, how did you peer inside the envelope? We don't have the envelope here this morning, which is the problem. So if you can help us with that and paint a word picture for the jury as to how you peered inside the envelope, sir.
Well, I peered inside it by standing over it and bending over. If you notice in the upper left quadrant, there is the opening that I earlier alluded to, and that's what I looked into.
You say the upper left quadrant.
Yes.
Can you step down and point that out so everybody's clear? Do you need a pointer?
It's right up in this area right here.
All right. Your Honor, he's indicating in the upper left quadrant of the envelope near the top. All right. And so you looked inside from that vantage point. Is that correct, sir?
Yes.
And what did you see? Now, you saw these glasses, then you saw what else?
It appeared to me to be a pair of glasses. I didn't see a whole lot more. You can't see a whole lot through that little crack.
All right. And you never, that's as much as you saw at that time. Is that correct? And in your notes, did you ever ascertain, you may resume your seat, sir. Did you ever ascertain whether or not there was more than one lens inside that envelope?
I did not.
And so you don't know at this point. Is that correct?
I don't know.
Were you ever told after you were on the witness stand last week that there's only one lens found in that envelope at some later time? Were you ever told that?
I believe you mentioned that.
All right. And did anybody else ever tell you that other than myself?
No.
Questions? Now, did you note this in your notes at all as to anything about lenses? The notes we've been talking about?
No.
So you don't indicate in your notes whether or not there were one lens or two lenses?
Again, I don't recall seeing one or two lenses.
You just saw these glasses. Is that right?
It appeared to be a pair of glasses in the envelope. Yes.
Do you know whether or not there was ever a picture taken of these glasses at the time the envelope was booked?
The time it was booked?
Yes.
I don't believe there would have been, no.
It would have been booked in that same condition it now appears on the Elmo?
It should have been, yes.
Now, with regard to, I asked you some questions before about the moving evidence. In any of your notes or any of your reports, did you ever at any time note that any of the evidence had actually been moved?
Objection asked and answered.
Oh, it's preliminary.
No.
And the evidence, as I understand it, that we have of the evidence being moved are the photos themselves. Is that correct?
Photographs, that's correct.
Did you find some kind of a Bonita, Ecuador label somewhere out at that scene that day?
Yes.
And what is a Bonita, Ecuador label?
It appeared to me to be a small sticker label that perhaps would go on a piece of fruit.
And where did you find this particular label, sir?
It was found near the east pole of the stationary gate east of the sidewalk, I believe 2 or 3 inches from that location.
Where is that label now?
I believe it was booked into evidence.
All right, have you seen it recently?
No,
And when you said it was found near the east pole, where was it, on the ground? Where was it?
it was on the ground, yes.
And it was booked into evidence. Is that correct?
Yes.
And with regard to that, when's the last time you saw that label?
The last,
Like a banana, some kind of fruit?
I suppose it's possible.
You don't know where that label is today, do you?
Where it is?
Yes, where it is present.
It's at Scientific Investigation Division.
So still be at LAPD?
Yes.
So if we wanted to get it brought over, you could do that for us
I could probably see that it was done, yes,
over the lunch hour?
certainly.
Do you recall any photographs being taken of that label?
The label appears in one photograph, but not a close-up shot. It's an overall shot.
All right. Now, With regard to Mr. Goldman, did you, on the date of June 13th or any time around that time, conduct any investigation by going personally to Mr. Goldman's apartment to try and trace his activities on the evening hours of June 12th, 1994?
I did not. I had two other detectives do that.
And who were they?
Detectives Tippin and Carr.
And what did you have them do, if you recall?
They went to Mr. Goldman's residence.
But let me kind of stop you there for a minute. When did they first go to Mr. Goldman's residence?
When?
Yes, when, sir?
I don't recall. It was after the 13th. I don't specifically recall the date. They have a log.
All right, they have a log.
Yes.
Does your log indicate at all when they went?
I don't believe it'd be in my log. It should be in their log.
Okay, and that would be in Tippin and whom else?
Carr.
And Carr. Now, I interrupted you. What did they do, as best you can recall, with regard to Mr. Goldman?
Conducted an investigation at Mr. Goldman's apartment.
And did they go through some kind of a day book or a notebook of his and look through certain papers? Is that correct?
I believe they did.
And we've been provided with copies of that. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Now, in that connection, as the investigating officer in this case, would it be relevant to you to know, for instance, what time Mr. Goldman had his last meal that evening?
It certainly could be, yes.
And did you ascertain where and when he had his last meal and what time?
I did not.
You did not do that?
No.
With regard to Mr. Goldman's stomach contents, they were not thrown away, as with Miss Nicole Brown Simpson. Isn't that correct?
That's my understanding.
And so the stomach contents were available. And have you, in the course of your investigation, had occasion to examine the stomach contents or discuss that with the coroner to assist you in extrapolating backwards as to when Mr. Goldman might have had his last meal prior to the time of his death?
That examination,
Objection, Your Honor, that's not. Testimony beyond scope.
Overruled.
that examination would be conducted by the coroner's office.
All right, but you, as you were present during the autopsy, were you not?
That's correct.
And you're the investigating officer, one of them. Is that right?
That's correct.
Time of death is critical in this case, is it not?
Yes.
And did you talk to the coroner's office about the stomach contents of Mr. Goldman, try and determine when he had his last meal and at what time?
We discussed time of death in regards to stomach contents and the fact that digestion could be retarded if one were under a great deal of stress. Consequently, the findings regarding the contents in the stomach may not always be accurate.
Well, who told you that anyone was under a great deal of stress?
Who told me?
Yes, who told you that?
That's my opinion, that both of these victims would certainly be under a great deal of stress.
All right, well, what we're talking about is the stomach contents and the condition they existed before the time of death, officer. Isn't that correct? In other words, is that what we're talking about?
I don't know. I
right.
assumed you were asking me about stomach contents as they relate to time of death.
Yes, sir. Did you do anything to determine what time Mr. Goldman had his last meal?
No. Mr. Goldman had been working
I understand that.
several hours prior to that. And as far as my information was, he didn't have a meal. He may have eaten something, but
Well,
I had no information as to him eating a meal.
would it be important in the course of your investigation to try and determine where Mr. Goldman went after he got off work?
Yes,
Did you do anything to try and determine that?
yes.
And what'd you do in that connection?
Detectives Tippin and Carr investigated at Mr. Goldman's apartment and found clothing that he had been wearing that night at work at Mezzaluna.
Was that clothing in a bag of some kind?
I don't recall if it was in a bag or not.
Did you look inside the pockets of that clothing?
Did I? No.
Did they look inside the pockets, if you know?
I don't know.
Do you know whether or not there were any notes found in or about the clothing of Mr. Goldman's?
None were brought to my attention.
May I ask you about some evidence?
All right. Sure. right, Mr. Cochran.
Madam Pro Chair,
You bet.
I want to place, I think it's 30 for the application before you, and ask you to open this bag and take the contents out. This purports to be Mr. Goldman's clothes he was wearing sometime earlier that evening. Is that correct? Is that correct, Detective Lane?
I'm checking. They appear to be, yes. Would you like me to remove them?
Yes, please.
Moving a pair of pants. Appears to be a shirt, not a hanger.
All right, anything else in the bag?
There's an envelope, it appears to be.
Can you check that out?
One-piece screen paper with writing from brown paper bag dated 2/18/95.
All right, can you open that?
And tearing a piece of tape that's initialed on the back. It's a green scrap of paper.
All right, let's look at that paper. You seen this before?
No.
What is this paper?
Appears to be some kind of a shopping list.
A laundry list, a shopping list?
Yes.
All right, now this, what is, once you read what that has on it.
Vegetables, turkey, tomatoes, lettuce, chicken, asparagus, broccoli, sugar-free ice cream. You can't make out this one here. Pretzels, perhaps.
Have you ever seen that list before?
No.
And this bag, with regard to this is a Pavilions bag, Bond's Pavilions bag. How were these clothes recovered, and what's the connection of the bag with the clothes?
Once again, they were recovered by Detectives Tippin and Carr. I wasn't there. I couldn't answer that.
But it was booked in the Bond's Pavilion bag along with this envelope. Is that correct?
Apparently.
Did the detectives and you see banana on there also?
Excuse me, counsel. Without the reporter.
This bag and the envelope and the green list is now marked for evidence. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Do you know who wrote that list?
No.
Had you ever seen that green list before this?
No, I haven't.
Have you looked inside those clothes, looked in the pockets inside those clothes before?
I have not.
Can you do that? You now looked inside each of the pockets?
Yes.
All right, you find anything in there?
No.
All right. Now, then with regard to this list, we don't know at this point whose handwriting that is.
I don't. Right.
All right, and is there, I was asking just before the clerk called us over, is there a banana on the top of that list, on the upper right hand side of the list?
Yes.
This is Bonita Ecuador label. Is that a label found on bananas oftentimes?
I don't know.
You've never seen that?
No.
Now, with regard to these clothes, were these clothes recovered by the two detectives from the apartment that night?
That's my understanding.
And they then booked it into evidence thereafter in the condition we just saw it in. Is that right?
I believe so.
Did you, in the course of your investigation and the gentleman that you used in this investigation, did you ever try and ascertain whether or not after Mr. Goldman left work, he went someplace and ate?
I don't believe that came up due to the fact we believe that he went directly to his home and changed in the
Right.
time that he left the Mezzaluna.
All right. Now, if he had a full stomach of food, undigested food, would that indicate to you that if he didn't eat at Mezzaluna and he still had a full stomach of food at the time of death, that he may have eaten someplace?
It's possible, sure.
All right. And as such, as an investigator,
Objection, that assumes fact, not evidence.
as an investigator, don't you want to determine all kinds of possibilities, sir? And that's the question.
All kinds of possibilities in regards to what?
Well, all the various possible scenarios. Don't you want to consider that?
Scenarios?
Well, let me rephrase it, sir. With regard to Mr. Goldman's stomach contents, that's an indication he'd eaten something somewhere that night. Did you go back and check at Mezzaluna and determine whether or not he had a meal at Mezzaluna before he left?
I don't believe he did.
All right. So your answer is yes, you checked that and he didn't. All right. If he didn't eat at Mezzaluna, as an investigator, did you then say, well, I better check and see where he had this meal, if any? Did you check that out? That's my question.
That did not come into play, no.
All right. So you didn't check it out. Is that your answer?
And I had no reason to.
All right. And the question is, did you check it out?
The answer is no.
All right. And so when you were at the coroner's office and at the time of the autopsy, with regard to these stomach contents, you have not had anyone in the coroner's office to try and determine by looking at the stomach contents when Mr. Goldman might have had his last meal. Is that, as we sit here now, is that correct?
That's what they do at the coroner's office.
I'm asking what you did in this case.
I didn't examine the contents. I
Right.
don't examine stomach contents.
And did you have any expert, medical, forensic person look at these stomach contents to try and determine how long he'd had this meal before he died? Did you do that?
Did I do that?
Yes.
No, that would have been
All right.
done by the coroner's office.
Did you ask the coroner, any coroner, to do that?
Again, that would be something that would fall under their purview.
And you would never make that suggestion to him at all?
To
To the coroner's office?
To
Don't
do
you work
what?
together with them?
what suggestion?
That they look at the stomach contents to try to determine the time of death.
I believe the coroner's office does that. We don't normally dictate to them how to do their investigations.
And you made no suggestion to him at all regarding the stomach contents in this case.
I don't believe I did.
Do you have any reports from them regarding the Goldman stomach contents
Any reports on that
from
would
the
be,
coroner's office?
would be in the coroner's protocol.
Did you ever have occasion to look at Mr. Goldman's beeper entries? You remember you described for us that he had a beeper there at the scene. Did you go back and try to look at earlier beeper entries on June 12th,
Yes.
1994?
Yes,
All right, and what were the results of that?
there were none.
Now, with regard to the items found at the Goldman apartment, did you find any information where Mr. Goldman had Miss Nicole Brown Simpson's phone number there?
Again, I didn't investigate or examine anything at that location that may have happened. I don't recall seeing it.
Have you had occasion to look at the notes of items taken and, from, I guess, the Goldman apartment?
Not in some time.
All right, do you recall that Ms. Nicole Brown Simpson's phone number appears twice in these copies? Do you recall that?
That may well be.
May I approach you?
You may.
If I were to show you a copy, would that refresh your recollection perhaps?
Perhaps.
I was thinking about that, but then we started talking about content of the apartment again.
Placed before I showed this to council. I want you to look at this, read this to yourself, first of all. It's DA 003953. You see that?
Yes.
And there's apparently a phone number there. Without reading that phone number, there's a phone number there also, right?
Yes.
And look also next at DA 003955. You see that name there?
Yes.
You see that phone number there?
That's correct.
Okay, does that appear to be Nicole Simpson
Yes.
and her phone number?
Yes.
And so you see at least on 2 occasions, her numbers found in these documents that were allegedly found in Mr. Goldman's apartment.
Yes.
And in fairness, there are other female numbers, other female names with numbers therein also.
Yes, sir. Yes.
But her number's in there twice, is that right?
That's correct.
Does that refresh your recollection?
Yes.
All right, have you, by the way, have you had occasion to review these documents here, which purport to have come either from some kind of a booklet or something inside the apartment?
Not recently.
Did you ever review it?
I believe initially I did. Yes.
Did you follow up on any of the names of the people contained in this information?
I don't recall if I specifically did or Tippin and Carr did, or if it was done at all.
Did you find out what design wrap is? Design wrap, W-R-A-P, right?
No,
Was that a business that Mr. Goldman was involved in?
I don't know.
You never looked at that either?
No.
Did you ever consider that Mr. Goldman may have been the target of the assassin or assassins that particular night? Did you ever consider that at all?
The target of an assassin?
No. Was he the target of the perpetrators on June 12th, the perpetrator or perpetrators on June 12th, 1994, when he came to Ms. Nicole Brown Simpson's residence? Did you ever consider that as a possible theory?
That he would be the target?
Yes, let me see if I can make it so you understand it. Did you ever, as the investigating officer in this case, ever consider any other theory than that OJ Simpson was the only perpetrator in this case?
Any other theory?
Yes, any other theory, any other possibilities?
I had absolutely no other evidence that would point me in any other direction.
Did you ever consider that Mr. Goldman could have been a person followed to that location? Did you ever consider that at all?
I think it's entirely possible he was followed.
All right. Did you ever consider that something regarding him or his background may have led some persons to follow him there to that location?
I had no evidence at all to suggest that.
And so did you ever pursue that or look at it at all?
There was nothing to pursue. There was nothing to show any evidence to that.
You never looked at any of the people in his book or made any determinations about his background? You didn't do that?
Again, I believe I did go through the book initially. I believe Tippin and Carr did. But there was nothing in that book to lead in any other direction.
All right. So you didn't do anything about that, right?
About
Following up on any other leads or anything regarding Mr. Goldman?
I didn't see any other leads to follow up on.
All right. Now, with regard to Mr. Goldman, you have, I believe, shared with us that he drove a vehicle to Miss Nicole Brown Simpson's residence that night. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you know what time he got off work, is that correct?
Yes,
You know at some point he came home, is that correct?
I believe that's what happened, yes,
And were you aware of whether, and he changed clothes, is that correct?
yes,
Are you aware of whether or not he showered before he left his place?
no,
You have no knowledge one way or the other?
no.
Do you know whether or not, when did Tippin and Carr get there? Were they able to make any kind of determination by getting to the scene or Mr. Goldman's residence quickly after these bodies were discovered?
They didn't respond till the next day, I believe.
So the next day would have been what day, the 13th or the 14th?
I don't recall exactly. I believe it was the 14th.
So the 14th of June.
It may have been the 13th. I don't have their log and I haven't looked at it in months.
All right. So at any rate, you can't tell us whether or not he showered or whatever. Is that correct?
I can't. That's correct.
You cannot tell us, and then you can't tell us whether or not he went and had a meal or ate with somebody, can you?
It's my information and my belief that he didn't.
All right, but yet you know that he had a stomach of food, an undigested food, isn't that correct?
I believe he did.
All right, you sit here now, you can't tell us when he ate that food, can you?
Specifically, no,
Yes.
but
All right.
I'm aware that he works at a restaurant and would
All
have
right.
probably eaten during that time.
Sir, but did you not tell us you spoke at Metzaluna and they told you he had not eaten there that evening? Did you check on that?
Not necessarily to sit down and have a meal, but whether he was observed during his entire tour of duty there, I don't know. He may have well eaten something there.
Well, perhaps he did, but if he ate at 6 o'clock in the evening, you'd expect that would have been digested, would you not have?
Objection, this is beyond scope, Justice.
Well,
Overruled.
that's common sense.
Objection, Your Honor, this is not a doctor. We didn't know.
Foundation,
No foundation.
sustain.
Thank you.
With regard to, as a human being, as an investigator, as someone with common sense, if one eats a meal at 6 o'clock p.m., would you expect that that meal through the digestive processes would have started to become digested over a period of 4 or 5 hours? Would you expect that?
No foundation.
Sustain. Why don't you ask a few foundation questions?
Certainly. As a homicide investigator of 20 plus years, you've attended a number of autopsies, have you not?
Yes,
And you've seen stomach contents on numerous occasions, have you not?
yes,
And you know something about the rate at which the body digests food, do you not?
yes,
You know that over a period of time, the body will digest food and process it. You know that, don't you?
yes,
You know that if a person has relatively undigested food, that's an indication that they have recently had a meal. Isn't that correct, sir?
possibly.
Also, no objection. We have no foundation.
It's the foundation, Your Honor.
All right, overruled.
Thank you. Forgot what the question was now, Your Honor.
Sort of a rhetorical, argumentative question in the sense that if you have full stomach content,
Let me see if I can restate it in a fashion that will not be. And you know, based upon your experience, that if a person has a relatively full undigested stomach of food, it's an indication they've probably eaten recently before they met their death. Isn't that a fair statement?
Depends on what you mean by recently.
Well, within an hour or so.
Again, that's not necessarily true and that digestion can be retarded.
Sir, if your digestion, of course, when you die, the digestive process stops. Isn't that correct?
Yes,
All right. And if you, are you telling us that this stressful situation of the fight that took place between Mr. Goldman and whoever the perpetrator or perpetrators were that night lasted for a half hour or so, you think?
no,
Think it was a stressful situation that lasted for 15 minutes or more?
I don't believe it did.
Oh, let's talk about the time before the stressful situation, when your body would normally process and digest food. Okay? In that instance, in this case, have you spoken to any expert forensic pathologist about the state of the stomach contents of Mr. Goldman that night and whether or not that expert can help us and assist us in determining when Mr. Goldman had his last meal?
Objection, Your Honor, irrelevant, beyond scope.
It's very
No
relevant, Your Honor.
foundation.
It's
The court
relevant.
will testify.
overruled.
Speaking objection, Your Honor. Speaking
Overruled.
objection. All right, you may answer. Have you?
Regarding time of death,
Yes.
yes, that and the other factors, and a time of death was given to me between 9 p.m. and 12 midnight, closer to 9.
That's not the question I asked you. The question
I'm
is, have you talked to a forensic pathologist with regard to Mr. Goldman's stomach contents? And has that forensic pathologist been able to look at the state of those stomach contents and assist us in determining when Mr. Goldman had his last meal?
You can ask that answer.
Oh, well. Specifically as to the stomach contents,
Yes.
no,
Okay, we're talking about stomach contents. No is the answer.
that's correct.
And so here we are, and you strike that. What doctors have you talked to with connection, forensic doctors you've talked to in connection with this case in your investigation? Can you give us their names?
Dr. Golden,
And he's the gentleman who performed the 2 autopsies.
that's correct.
Are you aware that the coroner's office has prepared a list of at least 16 items that they themselves
Sustained.
like to be heard on that, Your Honor?
Sustained.
All right. Now, with regard to Dr. Golden, give us the name of any other doctors.
Dr. Lakshmanan,
He is the coroner.
yes.
All right. Who else?
Dr. Sherry,
Spell that for us.
Sherry,
S-H.
Sherry.
All right. Whom else?
I believe that's it.
At any rate, when you were at the scene at Bundy in the early morning hours, you never dispatched any police officers to go to Mr. Goldman's home and search for any clues at that time, did you?
I didn't know where he lived at that time.
Well, you found out sometime that day, did you not?
I believe it was later on.
It was sometime on the 13th, wasn't it, officer?
I don't recall when it was.
Now, with regard to Mr. Goldman, I believe you've indicated to us that there were no bloody footprints which matched his shoes at the scene there at Bundy. Is that correct?
Yes,
And his shoes had quite a bit of mud under the bottom of them, did they not?
I believe there was mud or dirt.
And that was consistent with the area where you showed us earlier where this altercation took place and where the ground was dug up. Is that correct?
I would say so.
And was there did you find some sort of a stain or blood drop under his shoes at all?
There were blood droplets on the soles of his shoes, yes.
And were you, in the course of your investigation, were you able to ascertain how those blood drops or droplets got under his shoes?
I have an opinion how they got there.
You were not present, of course, right?
When the
You were
blood
not present at
droplets
the time
were
of this
deposited,
altercation. Yes.
No.
Hold on. Counsel, you guys are driving the court reporter nuts this morning. You're both talking over each other.
Sorry. Let me start over. You were not present. Let me strike that, Chairman. With regard to, was there one blood drop or more than one blood drop under Mr. Goldman's shoes?
more than one.
How many altogether?
There were several, I believe, in both soles of both shoes.
All right. And did you conduct some tests on those blood drops or try to conduct some tests to determine when those blood drops were placed there under his shoes?
I personally did not, but there were tests conducted.
All right. You didn't do it personally?
No.
It was clear to you that he had not walked through any blood on that walkway that particular night. Is that correct?
I don't believe he did.
And so, in that instance, you strike that. You described for us earlier that you don't recall seeing any blood under the feet of Miss Nicole Brown Simpson either. Is that correct? You tell us that.
That's correct.
And once you came to your conclusion, or you developed your theory that she was killed first, it's true, is it not? You never looked at any other possible theories. Isn't that correct?
My theory that she was killed, that's not my theory that she was killed first. That was in response to a question as to something that may have possibly happened.
All right.
I
Is that
can't
your
tell
theory?
you who was killed first.
Is that your theory? That she
What?
was killed first?
No.
That's not your theory?
No.
You don't believe that?
I don't know,
All right. And you don't know because you weren't there. Is that correct?
certainly.
And isn't the whole reason, as a homicide investigator, don't you try to gather all of the facts together and then try to put those facts together and come to some kind of a well-reasoned conclusion? Don't you do that?
Certainly.
In the course of that, don't you need all the facts as it relates to the case?
It's good to have all the facts, all that you can get, yes.
If you jump to a conclusion sometimes, don't you find out later that there were other things that you could have looked at by making a quick decision in a particular case. Isn't that true?
Objection, say it's already been made.
Sustain.
You would agree with me that it's not good investigative practices to rush to judgment in a case. Would you agree with that?
Certainly.
And in this case, you've described for us that these crimes occurred on the evening hours of June 12th, 1994. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I believe you shared with us early on that the complaint in this case was filed on June 17th, 1994. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that was on a Friday. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And who was the district attorney who filed these charges?
Marcia Clark,
And Ms. Clark was at the scene of Rockingham on what date? What's the first time she came to Rockingham that you know of?
I believe she was there on the 13th.
On that Monday?
Yes.
And approximately what time?
I wasn't there. I don't know.
When you came back from being downtown at Parker Center after about 5 o'clock in the evening, was she there at that time or had she left by that time, if you know?
I don't recall seeing her there.
You do not recall seeing her there?
I don't recall seeing her there Monday evening.
All right. Let me ask you a few questions about Rockingham. You described for us that you're going over to Rockingham from Bundy. You recall that?
Yes.
And with regard to this small red spot on the Bronco, did you see that yourself?
Yes.
Who pointed that out to you?
Detective Furman.
Mark Furman pointed that out to you also?
Yes.
And can you describe for the jury the size of that this purported red spot on the Bronco?
As to size, it certainly wasn't what I would call a dime size. It would probably be much smaller than that.
Would you say it was smaller than an eraser head on a pencil?
I'd say perhaps about that size, maybe smaller.
And when you were out there, do you have any pictures taken of this spot or speck?
I left before the photographer showed up.
Could you see that with the naked eye?
Yes.
And was it when you were shown this by Mark Furman, did you have your flashlight or was it light out by this time?
It was light enough to see.
And when you were shown this by Furman, were you the only one there at that time?
I believe so. I think Phillips and Van Adder were down the street just a bit.
And if you know, were you the first one shown that in sequence?
I was the closest to Furman, so I believe I was.
All right. And he called you over and showed this to you. And after you saw this small, perhaps eraserhead size spot or speck, did you at that point look inside the car yourself? Look inside this vehicle?
At that point, no.
You didn't look inside with the use of flashlights at all?
Not at that point, no.
And this was the vehicle that was parked kind of at this funny angle. Is that correct?
It appeared to be jetting out. The rear end appeared to be jetting out a little bit, yes.
Now, you mentioned something about the fact that you had information that you thought that the maid was supposed to be there. Where'd you get that information from?
It was relayed to me by Detective Phillips after speaking with the West Tech.
This was a Sunday evening, early Monday morning. Is that correct?
This was early Monday morning.
All right. And you're aware that maids have days off, are you?
Some do and some don't, I imagine.
And this was hearsay information that you got from Detective Phillips about the maid supposedly being there. Is that correct?
That would be probably hearsay, yes.
Now, you saw
That's irrelevant here, so they're not in court.
Sustain.
two vehicles in the driveway that evening.
Yes, that morning.
And at the time that you directed Mark Furman to go over this wall, at that point, had you focused on Mr. OJ Simpson as a suspect in this case?
No.
So the things you'd seen up to that point did not cause you to believe he was a suspect, right?
specifically recall discussing it with Phillips, Furman, and Van Adder that we felt we had an exigent circumstance and that someone inside could be bleeding or worse.
All right, so you were going in to save bodies, is that right?
We were going in to investigate if anyone, in fact, had been a victim, yes.
And before you went inside, did you look inside the Bronco anymore at all? Either visually or through the use of your flashlight?
I don't believe I did at that time, no.
You believe what?
At that time, no.
When both you and Van Adder were at the Rockingham scene, before you went over, had Furman climb over this fence, who was in charge?
It'd be Van Adder and myself working as partners. There wasn't one person who'd be in charge.
So you're both co-partners or co-lead investigators at that point?
Yes.
Now, you shared with us your notes. They were written chronologically at the scene on that particular date, June 13th, 1994. With regard to the alleged blood spots that were on the rear gate, did you ever write down or log that there were blood spots on that rear gate in your notes?
I don't believe it did.
And wouldn't that have been an important circumstance?
Not necessarily. That would fall under the purview of the criminalists collecting them.
I see. So a review of your notes indicates you didn't write that down, right?
I don't believe it did.
And that evidence, if it was there, was not collected until approximately 3 weeks later on July 3rd. Is that right?
That's correct.
And on July 3rd, you were going to show the DAs a walkthrough at that location. Is that correct?
Yes.
Ms. Clark and then Mr. Hodgman. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you called, as I understand, the criminalists to the scene after you got out there on July 3rd. Is that correct? After 10 o'clock in the morning?
I believe that happened, yes.
Are we going to something new on this? Because we visited this once thoroughly before.
Yeah, just cover that shot.
All right.
Is that correct?
Yes.
With regard to the lighting that you saw at the Bundy location, you recall